Why are dozens of advanced US fighter jets suddenly crossing the Atlantic as nuclear negotiations with Iran hang by a thread? In just 72 hours, at least 18 F-35s, multiple F-22 Raptors, wild Weasel F-16 squadrons, surveillance aircraft, and 2 carrier strike groups have repositioned toward the Middle East. When that scale of air power moves simultaneously, it signals more than routine rotation. It signals contingency planning with global consequences. If diplomacy succeeds, this buildup becomes leverage. Visible pressure designed to shape negotiations over uranium enrichment and verification. If talks collapse, the same aircraft could form the opening wave of coordinated strikes against hardened nuclear facilities, risking regional escalation that would affect energy markets, maritime security, and great power alignments from Europe to East Asia. The latest movements follow a pattern established in June 2025 during Operation Midnight Hammer, when 7 B-2 Spirit bombers struck Iranian nuclear facilities at Fordow and Natanz, while Tomahawk cruise missiles targeted Isfahan. That operation demonstrated the United States' capacity to synchronize stealth bombers, electronic warfare platforms, and fighter escorts across thousands of miles. The aircraft now deploying include many of the same categories used in that strike architecture. Flight tracking data show F-16 Fighting Falcons departing Spangdahlem Air Base in Germany, Aviano Air Base in Italy, and McEntire Joint National Guard Base in South Carolina. These units include specialized Wild Weasel squadrons trained to suppress enemy air defenses by targeting radar and missile systems. 12 F-16s from South Carolina's Air National Guard, known as the Swamp Foxes, staged through Lajes Field in the Azores on February 17th, imagery confirms. Wild Weasel platforms played a critical role in neutralizing Iranian air defense nodes during last year's operation. On February 16th, 18 F-35s from the 48th Fighter Wing at RAF Lakenheath departed toward the Middle East with aerial refueling support. They are joining 12 F-35As from the Vermont Air National Guard that deployed earlier. Fifth-generation fighters provide stealth penetration capability and advanced sensor fusion, enabling coordinated strike packages in contested airspace. Simultaneously, F-22 Raptors from Joint Base Langley Eustis crossed the Atlantic using deployment-associated call signs. 6 arrived at RAF Lakenheath on February 17th, with additional aircraft expected. The F-22, primarily an air superiority platform, has often led strike formations in the Middle East. During Operation Midnight Hammer, Raptors shielded bombers and strike aircraft from potential airborne threats. Although Iran's Air Force lacks modern peer capabilities, the F-22's presence enhances deterrence and ensures air dominance. Support assets amplify the buildup. An RC-135 rivet joint signals intelligence aircraft relocated from Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar to Crete, a location less exposed to regional missile threats. Another RC-135 is en route from Florida. Multiple P-8 Poseidon maritime patrol aircraft have conducted missions over the Strait of Hormuz, a choke point through which roughly 1/5 of global oil supply transits. 2 E-3 Sentry airborne warning and control aircraft landed at RAF Mildenhall, with additional platforms inbound. E-11 BACN communications relay aircraft and more than a dozen refueling tankers have also repositioned to Europe and the Middle East. Naval power mirrors the air component. The USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group operates in the Arabian Sea with F-35Cs, FA-18 Super Hornets, and EA-18 electronic attack aircraft aboard. The USS Gerald R. Ford, previously operating in the Caribbean, has departed U.S. Southern Command's area and is moving through the Atlantic toward the Eastern Mediterranean. Each carrier is escorted by warships equipped with ballistic missile defense systems and Tomahawk cruise missiles, creating layered offensive and defensive capacity. The timing aligns with diplomatic tension. The current US administration has demanded that Iran accept a new nuclear accord prohibiting uranium enrichment. Iran's foreign minister recently indicated that a pathway for negotiations had begun, yet no agreement has materialized. Uranium enrichment remains the central fault line. Tehran views enrichment as a sovereign right under the Non-Proliferation Treaty framework. Washington seeks constraints that prevent breakout capability toward weapons-grade material. Historically, nuclear tensions between the two states escalated after the United States withdrew from the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action in 2018. Since then, Iran has expanded enrichment levels beyond earlier limits. International Atomic Energy Agency reporting has noted stockpiles enriched to higher percentages, shortening theoretical breakout timelines. The United States has alternated between sanctions, regional force deployments, and limited strikes to deter escalation. What if negotiations fail and Washington authorizes another coordinated strike? A multi-domain operation could involve stealth bombers launching from the continental United States, cruise missiles from naval platforms, and fighter-led suppression of air defenses. Iran could respond asymmetrically through missile launches, drone attacks on regional bases, or maritime harassment in the Strait of Hormuz. Oil prices could spike sharply, potentially exceeding triple-digit benchmarks, disrupting global supply chains already sensitive to geopolitical shocks. Now consider an alternative scenario. What if the visible buildup persuades Tehran to accept stringent enrichment restrictions under enhanced verification? In that case, the aircraft might redeploy quietly, serving their purpose as strategic signaling rather than combat assets. A stabilized nuclear framework could reduce immediate military risk, though distrust would persist and enforcement mechanisms would remain contentious. Regional actors are watching closely. Gulf states host US bases yet also seek economic engagement with Iran. Israel maintains independent strike capabilities and has historically signaled willingness to act unilaterally against perceived nuclear threats. Russia and China observe US force posture adjustments as indicators of broader American strategic bandwidth, particularly given simultaneous commitments in Europe and the Indo-Pacific. Some commentators attempt to connect these developments to unrelated policy decisions by other governments, including India. The drivers are rooted in US-Iran nuclear negotiations, regional deterrence calculations, and lessons drawn from prior operations such as Midnight Hammer. The scale and composition of this buildup reflect deliberate contingency layering: air superiority fighters, stealth multi-role jets, electronic warfare aircraft, intelligence collectors, refueling tankers, and carrier-based strike groups form an integrated system. Each element supports others. Suppression aircraft clear pathways. Stealth jets penetrate defended airspace. Surveillance platforms map electronic emissions. And naval escorts provide missile defense umbrellas.